Good morning. How's everybody? Who arranged for this weather today? Thank you, I appreciate it. We're in a series about rewriting your story. Of course, we can all imagine changing maybe the title or the chapters, especially the one that we're in, and we have goals and objectives for our outcome. But we don't always know that we're making progress towards that, and in fact, there may be times when we feel like we're losing ground or not able to keep up. The Apostle Paul is actually writing a letter from a prison cell, and the question is, what does a guy from a prison cell have to say? Secondly, the topic that we're going to look at today is he talks about joy and peace. What does a guy who's in prison have to say about those two topics? And that really depends on how you define those two things. If you see joy as you're kind of getting some wins under your belt, or you see peace as things are working out according to plan, then you wouldn't assume he would have anything to say. But the beautiful thing about Paul is he actually doesn't define those terms. He wants us to know that it is possible to experience a joy and a peace that is not conditional to the circumstances that you're in. And I think most of us would like to have access to real joy and real peace, even if things aren't going real well. And so we'll look at Philippians chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. He says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stay true to the Lord. I love you, and I long to see you, dear friends, for you are my joy and the crown I receive for my work. Now I appeal to Euodia and Syntyche. Please, because you belong to the Lord, settle your disagreement. And I ask you, my true partner, to help these two women, for they worked hard with me in telling others the good news. They worked along with Clement and with the rest of my co-laborers, whose names are written in the book of life. Always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considerate in all you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. And then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and your minds as you live in Christ Jesus. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you have learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God of peace will be with you." He starts out with a little bit of a surprising statement, and that is he tells us people are the prize. People are the prize. Don't give any knowing glances right now, but if you ever had the thought, when I get to heaven, I'm going to get quite the reward because I have to put up with the people I have to put up with. And if you haven't had that thought, perhaps other people have had that thought about you. Paul says a startling thing. I'm not getting a reward for working with you. I've done the work. I've done the planning. I've done the preparing. I've done the preaching. And the people are the reward. Quite a remarkable way to think, especially in a culture bent on incentivizing us with all kinds of material things. And the reward that he talks about is, you are my crown. And a crown for us, we typically think about as kind of a royal diadem being put on the head of a king. And that's not what the Greek word is actually the wreath that would be placed on an athlete's head when they competed in the games and they won their event. And what he was saying is, because you are connected to Christ, I feel like I'm winning. It's quite a remarkable thing to think about. And so he doesn't see people as giving him the platform he needs What he sees instead is God has given him the platform. He's not trying to use people to build the platform. He's using the platform God has given to build people. And that's quite a remarkable way to think about life. And then even in this community, he tells us something that's a little bit surprising. He tells us that there's disagreement. And disagreement is something that we're less tolerant of these days, I think. We require more and more for people to think exactly like us. And we think we found them online. Thank God for the algorithms of all the social media accounts who hook us and connect us up with people who think exactly like us until they don't. And so these two women in the church had a disagreement. I appeal to you, Euodia and Syntyche, please, because you belong to the Lord, settle your disagreement. Even in Philippi, there is disagreement. And these two women, when you read that passage, you learn some things about that. These are not just two women who don't get along in the church. Both of these women are leaders. Both of these women are preachers. They are presenting the gospel. You help me to present and proclaim the gospel to others, and they're partners in the gospel, but they found themselves in conflict. And sometimes our concept about church world is that everybody agrees and likes the same things. There's a reason we have all the variety of donuts we do here on Sunday morning. It is because not everybody likes the same thing. And when you think about it and you see somebody walk away from the counter and they have a donut that is different from yours, you do not go, hey, that's the wrong donut. You go, whew, they didn't get my donut. See, that's how you think about that. But when it comes to life, we think a little bit differently. The problem was not disagreement. The problem was disunity. That the disagreement was hardening to the point where it was actually requiring people to choose sides. And in our culture, that's what we are told. You got to choose. Are you with them? Are you with them? Stand up. Have the courage to choose. And I think sometimes that's foolishness. I have an expression that I use when people ask me, would you like cake or would you like ice cream? I say, yes. You don't have to choose on everything. But I will tell you that it is harder in leadership in the world today, and particularly spiritual leadership, where every issue that comes up, people want you to choose which side of that issue you are on, as though it's revealing something about your heart and your leadership capacity, your character, your courage. And what Paul does is he doesn't choose. He never says which side he's on in this. He calls those two women who are in disagreement to focus once again on Christ, the one that they were co-laborers with him. He said, I value both of you so much. You played such a role in the church in Philippi. I want you to focus on that instead of this. And so he calls them upward rather than calling them out. And he reframes the issue. And some of us, we'd like to know what that issue was. And some of us would like to know what Paul thought about it. And that's the problem, is that we think that all the issues have to be commentated on. You know? Just gently look at somebody next to you today. Put the nicest and kindest expression that you can on your face and tell them, you don't have to weigh in on everything. Just tell them, you don't have to weigh in on everything. Because for Paul, the problem was not the original disagreement. Paul was when ego gets involved and when misaligned priorities get involved, and now that becomes more important than what God is doing in the community. And so Paul calls them back to that. And then he shifts the conversation and he talks about joy. And what he tells us is joy is a mindset, not a mood. Most of us, I think, would define joy as kind of an emotion that we have when something goes our way. For example, if the Bills beat the Baltimore Ravens next week at the opening game, I will experience joy. What will I experience if the Bills lose? Yeah. Always be full of joy in the Lord. Always be full of joy in the Lord. I will say it again, rejoice. He has to remind us because we forget. We so often connect our capacity for joy with an outcome of a circumstance. And our assumption is that I can only really experience joy if something goes the way I want, if my team wins. And what Paul wants us to understand is that if that's your level of joy, then you're going to be without joy a lot, because in this world there will be multiple occasions, probably on a daily basis, in which you don't get what you want. So he's not writing from a beach chair on a luxury resort. He's actually chained to a garden in a cell. And he's telling us that you don't have to deny reality. You don't have to pretend that everything is wonderful to experience real joy, because joy is not a mood. It's a way of seeing the world. And this is quite remarkable. This is not a mental trick. It's actually something that he discovered. And I think it's entirely possible that you only discover this kind of thing when you're going through a season of suffering. When you discover that suffering actually does not erode God's purpose for your life, but sometimes it actually magnifies your understanding of it. And his joy is actually growing in a place where you wouldn't expect that, because his joy is rooted in God, in his Savior. And that frees him to be able to be considerate of other people, to be generous, to be kind. He isn't just in a good mood when things are going his way. He goes from joy and he talks about peace, and peace is interesting. Peace is confidence, not control. Peace is confidence, not control. Don't worry about anything, but instead pray about everything. How many is already more worried because you've been worrying? And he just said, don't do that. And then you will experience God's peace. We live in an age of anxiety. I have a smart device that can interrupt any thought that I am having or anything that I am doing to tell me about some horrible thing that is happening someplace in the world. It doesn't even have to be in my house, in my town, on my street, or in my country. It's happening somewhere, and it has made me aware. And then it makes you wonder. We hear the horrific news of someone going into a school and unloading a barrage of bullets, and instantly our hearts are filled with anxiety and fear, and we see things going in a trajectory. Some of us can do the math. It's not just that it's bad, it's also where it's going, and I can see where that's going, and if it keeps going that way, it's going to be a problem. And we start making decisions right now based on where we imagine something is going. And what we want to do in those moments is we want to take control, don't you? If I could just plan more, if I could just manage more, if I could just be in more control of more things, then I will have peace. Because we all know if I get what I want when I want it, that's better for everybody. Except it's not. And I can prove it, because what's happening right now is better for somebody, just not you. And so what does he do? He discovers that it's not about his ability to control. Now, this is what we do. If I can't control a situation, then our tendency is to go to the next level, which is, at least I want to become the kind of person that I don't care about that. Our granddaughter developed a phrase when she was about 2 to 3 years old. And she would say, I don't care about that. And we all wondered, where did that come from? Who is she listening to? And then it happened. One day we were all together, and we were talking about something, and I said, I don't care about that. And she learned that from me. And we think that if I can't be in control, at least I can be impervious to what's going on around me. And those are poor definitions of peace. If peace is only when I can control outcomes and individuals, or if peace is only when I'm impervious and I don't care, I won't let it affect me. That control and apathy is not a biblical definition of peace. It actually doesn't work. And so Paul talks about something else. He talks about confidence, and his confidence is not in himself. His confidence is not even that his situation will change. It's entirely possible that he will be tried and found guilty and executed. Eventually he would be. Historians don't think that it was this imprisonment that he was martyred in. They believe that he was set free from this one, and then a little bit later he was incarcerated again and wound up being martyred. Most historians believe by being beheaded in Rome. It's how they used to kill Roman citizens, which Paul was. And so he's not saying, oh, well, I think my situation will change eventually. He thinks it's entirely possible he could die. So on what is the basis of his confidence? And his confidence is based on this. You can put a guard at the door, you can chain me up and separate me from anyone, and you can't keep my Savior from being in the room with me. You can't keep God from doing what he's going to do. You can shut down this preacher, but you can't keep the gospel from spreading. Like, it didn't matter. His confidence was not in himself, and his confidence was not in his circumstances. His confidence was in a God who was absolutely fulfilling everything that he said that he would do, even if his situation wasn't perfect. And so that's the kind of confidence I think all of us want. I know someone's here and they're saying, nope, that's not the confidence. I want the confidence that says everything's going to go the way I want. Well, I do not have good news for you. Confidence. The peace of God will act like a guard. Now, this is interesting. I've heard a lot of times when people talk about a guard standing at the door and protecting your heart and your mind, and I think that's a really good illustration. But I thought of another one that I like too, and it's if you've done any contact sports, one of the things you wear is a mouth guard. Because if there is contact with your mouth, you don't want to lose your teeth. It doesn't mean that if you wear a mouth guard that no one can hit you. Right? I've seen boxers. I've seen people hit them so hard that the mouth guards come out of their mouth. The purpose of the mouth guard is not to stop the blows from coming, it's to stop damage from being done by them. And the peace of God doesn't mean that there's no blows that are going to hit you in your life. It just means that it's not going to be destructive to you. How many would like a peace like that? Yeah, I think that's quite a remarkable thing. And then he says this, pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Where's your focus? Fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, admirable. Because what you think about shapes your life. What you think about shapes your soul. If in life all you eat is junk food and sweets, you can be pretty sure what the doctor's going to tell you when you see him. It's going to be revealed in your blood work. It's going to be revealed on the scale. It's going to be revealed in all kinds of things that they look into. And they will tell you, there's not a pill that I can give you that can take away all of the effects of what you're pumping into yourself. And some people think that we can stay focused on the screens of our various sizes and all the things that are being said by all the voices that are in our world, and that somehow we're still going to have peace. And Paul says that's not actually how it works. If you want real peace, you're going to have to change your focus. Now, this is not a call for us to be Amish. I'm not going to have an altar call where we all bring our smart devices up and lay them on the altar and we smash them with hammers and then we go out free people. I thought about it, but I decided not to do it. And because the truth is we'll just get another device, or someone next to us will have a device. And what Paul is saying is this. He's not saying you can eliminate all the bad news in your life. That's not the point. The point is this. The point is you don't have to give a microphone to the bad news in your life and magnify it so that it is actually more than everything else in your life. We don't have to live like that. So focus. And you can actually change your focus. If all we focus on is outrage and cynicism and fear, you are going to be angry and you're going to be anxious, and even God can't change that. That's not spirituality. Spirituality is not, I'll consume what I want and God will mitigate any negative effects in my life. That's not how it works. That's not spiritual life. So it's not about cutting yourself off from reality. It's just deciding how much volume, how much attention you're going to give that. I think a lot of us think we know what is true. I'm concerned right now that what we think is true is just what we agree with or like. And I can agree with and like something that's not true. I think we can assume that our motives are pure even when others are not. But if you spend very much time in introspection or delving into the reasons why you have responded or failed to respond, you'll find out that sometimes there are motives. They were hidden, they weren't intentional, they weren't deliberate, but they were there. And we are also capable of admiring people who are not good for us to admire. If we emulate what they do and how they do it, our lives will not go in places we want it to go. We will wind up experiencing the kind of story all of us would exit if we had the opportunity. So the question is, well, where am I going to find something that I know is true and admirable and lovely and noble and worthy of praise? And this is what I think about that. When it comes to truth, you may not be able to tell when you're looking on your device if something is true or not true, but I do know someone who said he was the way, the truth, and the life, and I can choose for a minute to focus on him. He is true. He is the anchor. When we find ourselves looking for something that is pure, I don't know if everyone else's motives, I can't tell what they are, and sometimes I don't even know what mine are, but I do know what Jesus' motives were. He would lay his life down. He would breathe his last breath and give his last drop of blood just so that you and I could be included in his family. Because you know what? For Jesus, just like Paul, you are the prize. I'm going to ask worship team to come out. The last thing he says is practice, practice, practice. Keep putting into practice what you've learned. Then the God of peace will be with you. It's a subtle shift. Earlier he was talking about the peace of God, and now he talks about the God of peace. What he's telling us is that if we put into practice what we learn from him, that the God of peace will be with us, which, I mean, to be honest, it kind of feels like it could be misinterpreted like this. If I do the spiritual practices, then God will finally show up and draw near. And that's not what he's saying. God has always been near. He's closer than the breath you're breathing right now. There's a universe of distance between you and the person you're leaning on in this room. And God has always been closer. The practice doesn't make him show up. The practice makes us aware. The reason we focus on things that are lovely and good and pure and true, the reason we focus on him is because when I do that, I realize he's not far away from me. He's not disinterested. He's not distracted. He hasn't given up on me. Even if I'm in a prison cell, chained to the wall, separated from the people that I would give anything to spend time with, even if nothing is within my control in the course of a day, I have no options to exercise that illustrate anything of autonomy or agency of my own. When everybody else is calling the shots, or at least it feels that way to me, if I can focus, not pretend that's not true. I don't have to pretend anything. Not pretend that that's not true, but to focus. The one who is pure, who wants what's best for me no matter what. The one who is true, who never pretended anything and would never lie to me. The one who is lovely, even though he is bleeding out on a cross. There's something incredible, beautiful about someone who would lay down their lives for someone else. If I focus on him, then we begin to experience the kind of joy and peace that God intended for us all along. So you have an option. I'm not saying it's easy, especially in our world of high distraction. And maybe a number of us struggle with some ADD and ADHD components to our lives. And so focus could be a little bit harder. But it's not about how long you're going to focus. It's that you interrupt what you're already focusing on. To focus on something that's true and pure and beautiful and noble. That would be quite remarkable. I'm going to invite you over the next couple minutes. You can just stay seated where you are. The words will be on the screen. The melody and the lyrics will be in your ears. See if you can focus and see what happens when you do.